2025. Let's see what sort of adventures that it has in store. And pace cars way through the corner. That wasn't the crest doing him dirty.
There right off the beginning. It's something you probably want to monopolize on right away, honestly, in a rain race.
Involved in that as well. Doden, I believe, is a newer racer. Oh, that's a big crash coming out of the corner. Right as I was mentioning all of those racers, that we saw him have that off-track moment not terribly long ago, and he has come back from a... Oh my God, that's a big wreck coming out of turn number 4. Multiple cars around. A little bit of contact going to Chris Montgomery as well. I saw that car kind of jerk around a little bit through that corner, but you can see Montgomery maybe got to size up a move on Colacio, as Colacio may try and get a move on. That is 5-6 cars covered by just about nothing on this racetrack. Nearly 4 wide through the corner. Look at Colacio going in way deep into turn 5. He's going to lose out on that spot on Chris Montgomery and maybe Colacio. Too long contact being... Weekly Formula V Weekend Warriors crash him up wreckfest at the checkered flag. May God have mercy on both Josh and I's graphics cards because the event dust. Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting and welcome back to Season 2 of 2025 for the Formula V Weekend Warriors. This is round number 1 of the season coming to today from Cadwell Park. My name is Ron Maunz. Alongside me, working the comms and the cams, is Joshua Wilkie. We stand today at the beginning of a brand new season, one with a lot of unanswered questions coming into it. From rookie drivers looking to impress to veteran drivers looking to see some opportunities, this season is going to be a good one. So sit back and relax, folks, because this is going to be a heck of a lot of fun. To kick it off, we come to Cadwell Park. This tight and twisty track in the UK was the home of one of the most dramatic races one season ago. And Josh, with the pressure of the debut race of a season, I have a feeling this race is going to be pretty awesome too.
Hey, Season 2, kicking it off at Cadwell Park. One of my favorite tracks for sure. We've been here quite a bit in the Weekend Warriors across the whole spectrum here too of the drivers and the cars and classes here and stuff as well. So I would imagine that, you know, people kind of know this track okay now. It was fairly new last year, but it's not so new anymore. And we've done quite a few laps around here. So I would imagine things are going to get pretty spicy around here in the V's, Ron.
Again, pretty spicy indeed. Reminds me of the time that I bit into a jalapeno and they got my tongue stuck to an ice pack. It was so hot for me. But this is going to be a brilliant season. Last season, for Season 1 of 2025, it was an all-time classic with photo finishes, exciting racing, and a brilliant championship battle in all 3 of the classes that went down right to the final race of the season. The cumulative gap between P1 and P2 for the entirety of Season 1 ended up being about 17.5 seconds across 12 races. That skewed a little bit because some drivers won by a pretty wide margin, but we had some photo finishes with drivers covered by thousandths of a second. I have a feeling this season is going to be an instant classic as well. Getting into the first qualifying session of the season, already a minute and a half on the board in this 15-minute long solo session for these drivers. They have 4 laps to try and get the job done, and around this 2.18 mile 18-turn road course, it's a pretty rough ride. And let's do an onboard lap, running on board with a real-life Formula V V driver in the form of Brian Szynski, heading his way down that start-finish straightaway. Keeping that momentum is so important in these Formula Vs, and super important heading off through turn number 1 right now, flat out in these Vs, but then we got the elevation change. This is turn number 2, got lick to stamp and send it now into blind turn number 3. That corner is so tricky to try and get right. Always feels like I can never get it right for the life of me, but super important to try and ace that corner because it sends you onto this back straightaway. This flat out blast between 3 and 4 is actually the longest flat out blast the entirety of this lap, and it's also leading into one of the best overtaking opportunities as well. This is turn number 4, heavy on the brakes, go down a gear into third, swoop the momentum through. These low-powered Formula Vs, almighty drafting, and also really important to try and keep the momentum going through every single corner. That was turn number 5 into 6 and 7. This downhill chicane, super tough to try and get right. Avoid that curb on the grass at the exit though, otherwise you're going to be spinning like a top heading down the hill into turn number 8. Another heavy braking zone, but it's a bit sketchy to try and get overtake done. We saw that last season. Now into the tight twisties, the woodland section of this racetrack right by pit lane, and it starts off with this 11 and 12 chicane up the hill, but this ain't the uphill section. That is up the hill, cresting it. You can hear the RPMs ripping up. It's going to be tough heading through there in these cars. Now into the slalom section, the Titans Twisties 13, 14, 15 into turn 16, taking a bit of a chump of the pylons, heading through turn number 16 and spinning around, nearly coming out of turn number 17. Shows you how tricky that corner is to try and get right, but this corner, the final turn, turn 18, I think is even more tricky than that. Downhill, a little bit off camber, and in these draft-heavy or momentum-based Formula Vs, really important to try and get a good run through there, but that completes a lap of this very technical and very busy racetrack.
Yeah, it's a pretty mega lap around here, and you can definitely see, that last corner that he had the incident on is probably one of the hardest corners on the whole track to just get that car woed up. Even in the Vs where you're not really approaching it at a super high rate of speed, it's still really hard to get her slowed down right there. And, probably the first 8 or 9 laps I ever did around here, I just shot through that corner over and over again. You keep thinking you've slowed down enough, and you haven't, and it's kind of a scary one for sure. It's going to catch a few people out, I would imagine. Always on the first lap too. Really, really good place to accordion up and have an incident. But hopefully we can be a little cleaner than that today. And it looks like we got Jason Green up at the top of the board again.
Yeah, Jason Green, an incredibly quick driver here, and the entirety of the Weekend Warriors world was in championship contention for the Formula Vs last season, as he was for the season before that, for that matter. Got oh so close to that championship, got pipped at the end by Tortolo, who is your 2-time and reigning Formula V Weekend Warriors champion. However, because of his in real-life racing commitments, probably not going to see a lot of him throughout this season. He even admitted that a couple of weeks ago for the season finale for Season 1. Essentially just said, hey, real-life racing stuff comes first, and at the end of the day, can you necessarily blame him? Into the spring now, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. And Tortolo hopefully going to represent the Weekend Warriors, represent Ray Esports, and represent slow motion broadcasting strong as he runs Formula Vs in real life in the UK as well. So who knows, he may be ripping a Formula V around this track in real life in the not too far off future. But Jason Green, an incredibly quick driver in the Weekend Warriors as well. He's also just pretty fast driver, period. The driver of the 160 car certainly proving that right now in front of Antonio Reese in P2. The driver of the 914 car looking to have a bit of a rebound this season. Had some pretty tough luck in Season 1 of 2025 while his teammate Jorg Mani, we called him the janitor for a very good reason. He won just about every single race. But we got some new drivers coming into the series, some hot new blood, and some drivers who we saw impressed throughout last season. James Matthew Sheldon in the 108 car. He's a Spec 1 driver, and he's currently on the provisional pole in the 138 car. Not 138 car, in the 108 car, setting a 138.8 got the time, and the number confused a little bit there, but it happens to the best of us on the baby. I'm just giving myself excuses, but James Matthew Sheldon currently on the provisional pole. Ethan Orr slotted into second. He was impressive throughout last season. He's moved up to the Spec 1 category for this season after being incredibly impressive in Spec 2 throughout all of Season 1 of 2025. Jason Green back again. Him and Felix Samoes gave us a brilliant championship battle to talk about in the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors. They find themselves occupying the second row, but we got some fantastic storylines to keep tabs on all throughout this season. Josh, bit of a loaded question, but what class do you think is going to be the one that you'll be keeping tabs on with the most keen of eyes?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of a Spec 2 driver fan, to be honest. I really do like that class down there, at least when it's when it's full of some good drivers and stuff. And this year we've got a pretty good field there, I think, between I believe, what are we looking at here? Parvinder Ladar, Russell Telker, I believe Michelle Lynn in there. All of those people could take a win at any given race throughout the entire season, and that makes things interesting. So I'm kind of a Spec 2 lover myself, as well as the Masters guys too. We got a pretty good field there as well with Kurt Nunez, Jim Brewster, and Antonio Reese. Again, guys that are pretty darn close in pace. And then the S1 class is a little bit more, let's say, diverse. There is a lot more drivers in it, maybe not actually in this particular race, but in some of the other classes, in some of the other Weekend Warrior disciplines, there seems to be a little more S1 driver than there is S2. So we'll see kind of how it plays out here, Ron, but I like to keep my eye on S2.
Yeah, Spec 2 was a brilliant class to keep tabs on all throughout last season. It was Andrew Love taking the championship there, the second time that he had won that championship. So super quick driver, a lot of quick drivers in that Spec 2 category for that matter, and I have a feeling that this season is going to be absolutely no different. This is going to be some fun all throughout the 12 races to look forward to here for Season 2 of 2025. Just looking through this schedule as well, of course, getting the season kicked off today here in style at Cadwell Park. Going to be crossing the English Channel and heading to Magny Cours. That's going to be a rather interesting race, and kind of completing a bit of a sweep of the Weekend Warrior Series running at Magny Cours. All three of them are going to be on the exact same track come time for the next weekend here for the Weekend Warriors for week 2. And then going to be heading to Summit Point. That put on a brilliant race one season ago. It was so exciting, in fact, that the clip of the finish and Tortolo's perspective of that beautiful 4-wide photo finish right at the line with the top, I think it was a top 4 covered by what? 25/100ths of a second or something crazy like that. It was a brilliant race there. And then Sachsenring will follow for the 4th round of the championship, going to be running at VIR North, which put on a brilliant race for the season finale one season ago. Then we're going to be heading to some rather technical tracks in the form of Lebanon and Laguna Seca. That'll be some fun with the 2L races completing the first half of this season. Oschersleben will follow after Road Atlanta. Sonoma running on the shortened version of the NASCAR Cup layout. Then for the final 2 races, we have Lime Rock, which always puts on a good race, and the old track down there in Australia, which has sadly gone the way of the Dodo Bird, Oran Park, for the final race of this championship. Lots of good races to keep tabs on all throughout this season. I have a feeling this is going to be rather intense. And Josh, another loaded question for you as we still run through the motions of this qualifying session. Of all the tracks that I listed out there, which one do you think we should probably look forward to the most? My money would probably be on Summit Point and Lime Rock, but I know you're a fan of many different racetracks.
Yeah, you know what? I really like Lebanon quite a bit. I really like that track. It races really good with cars like this. I believe we're actually headed there in the SRFs tomorrow. Been doing a little bit of laps around there, just kind of getting ready for the race. And I raced it last year, and I went to jump in and race it this year, and I was like, oh, I raced this last year. This should be fairly easy. And I completely forgot the entire track. It is a very difficult track. But once you get it, it's really cool. It flows nicely. It's got some on-camber corners and big downhill braking section, and I really, really like that track. So I'm kind of looking forward to see the V's rip around there. And if I had to pick a second one, it would probably be Cadwell. So, pretty good stuff for me today, being able to do this one as the first round of the season. This has got to be one of my favorite tracks here. It's just basically like a special stage rally track or rally course.
That's a very good way of putting it. It's so narrow, so tight, and so technical. This track, I kind of like talking about the history of some of these racetracks because, man, we have some great tracks that we visit all throughout these Weekend Warriors in Cadwell Park. As you mentioned towards the start of this show here, Josh, it's a track that we only saw added onto iRacing a couple of seasons ago, but in the past few seasons, we have seen that it get a heck of a lot of use. The current version of the track was opened back in 1961. The track itself, period, was open all the way back in 1938. Current layout, as I said earlier on, 2.176 2.6 miles long. That's about 3.5 kilometers. 18 turns around Cadwell Park there in Lincolnshire. And the current lap record is, and show you how tight and technical this track is, actually set by a go-kart. It was Sam Moss behind the wheel of a Division 1 supercart in a 2021 British Supercard race at a 1 minute 21.036. It's a track that doesn't get a lot of major use in terms of like big racing series. You see the Formula V's run around here and some other lower level Formula and sports car racing. Really speaks volumes about the nature of this track, the fact that a small low go-kart is actually the quickest thing ever to go around here.
Yeah, you know what? That kind of makes a lot of sense, doesn't it, Ron? Like, the car just kind of gets too big. Like, if you have a big car with a ton of horsepower and all the stickiness rubber in the world, it just kind of can't get up to speed around here. Whereas something like, a supercart, you would imagine, can just rip around this place. It would be, all of a sudden the track's twice as wide as it was a minute ago when you were in a normal-sized car. So, yeah, that kind of makes sense, I think. Also, I think, this track does do a lot of time attack and stuff like that as well. So that probably plays into that, too. You're just not really getting certain types of machinery that might be able to beat something like that. But, I think a supercart would give basically any vehicle on the planet a good run for its money around this place.
Yeah, it really speaks volumes about how goofy of a racetrack this is. I mean, I absolutely adore Cadwell. I got my first real experience running around this track on Project Cars 2, incidentally, and ever since then, I have really adored this place. You have the Woodlands layout, which has possibly the tightest hairpin on the entirety of iRacing, right before Turn 1 on the actual course that we'll be running at today, and then the tight and twisties at 11 and 12 chicane through the S's into the final few corners. It's an oddball of a racetrack to be sure, but it's absolutely brilliant, and these drivers looking to put a brilliant race on to get this season underway. Jason Green finds himself on the provisional pole, currently saying a 1 minute 38.733. 0.02 of a second is a gap between Ethan Orr and Jason Green for that front row. Nate Coliseo just jumped up to fourth. Coliseo behind the wheel of the number 8 car, grabbed a couple of victories last season, and will certainly be looking to up his game a little bit. I was having a chat with Jason Green on the Other Racing Line podcast, which you can catch on the Other Ray Esports YouTube channel every single Tuesday. And I mentioned the fact that if Nate Coliseo can work on some inconsistency problems and maybe take a bit of a step up in terms of his week-to-week pace, he may be a driver we have to talk about in terms of winning the championship. He's quick in that 8 car and that Chiquita Banana car, looking to slip his way into championship contention. James Matthew Sheldon in the 108 car, the Spec 1 driver. He's not going to be a driver that we should scoff at either. Got a Nick Tullo out there who did pretty well in the Masters Championship. The Masters Championship going to be a good one to follow. I mentioned earlier on that Jurg Mani was incredibly quick throughout season number 1 of 2025. So here for season number 2, let's see if that pace is going to transfer. That was the word I was looking for. I buffered on for a little bit. I got there eventually, though. But one thing to raise here, Josh, as we're quickly approaching the end of this qualifying session, looking through last season and the champions that we had in the form of Tortullo in Spec 1, Andrew Love in Spec 2, and Jurg Mani in Masters, none of them are here. Tortullo's out racing in real life. Andrew Love is actually working at driving school at Summit Point Raceway, which we'll be visiting in a couple of weeks. And not sure where Jurg Mani is, but guess he decided to demote himself to spectator for this week. But that's a little bit odd. So gotta get the season kicked off with some new winners and some new faces.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of having to correct myself a little bit here about that class thing. The S1 class looks thick this year. I think we're going to have a pretty good battle in S1 and in S2. But yeah, it looks like Masters is a bit light. I would imagine that's only for this round here, and we're going to get some more. But I think we're about to grid them up here on a bit of a short lap. So let's see if we can't get the first grid of the season here on.
The first grid of Season 2 of 2025, this 12-race calendar is looking fantastic with a giant grid of race cars. I think we're going to have some fun, and it all kicks now with Jason Green starting this race from the pole position in the 160 car. Ethan Orr set to join him on that front row. James Matthew Sheldon in the 108 machine will start in 3rd. Next to Nate Coliseo in 4th. We have Felix Samoas starting in 5th. Antonio Reese, a Weekend Warriors veteran, starting in P6. Starting this race in 7th, we will find Michael McConnell starting in 8th alongside. We have Guido Marzucchi. Leon Frost, a newcomer to this series who was very fast in the Formula V Weekend Warriors draft party last night, will be in 9th with Michelle Lynn, series admin and sponsor of today's broadcast here on SMB, running at your top 10.
Yeah, big thanks to the sponsor from Michelle in there. In 11th, we have Kurt Nunez. In 12th, Parvinder Ladar from last season there. Hoping to see a bunch out of him this season there. He was definitely punching above his weight a few times last season for sure. Then we have Russell Telker in 13th. 14th is Suleiman Khan. 15th is Jim Brewster, another man we have to thank around here. Ken Poulin in 16th. Dan Szyczki 17th. Brian Hansen 18th. Brian Szyczki 19th. John Toms 20th. Chris Scriven 21st, Florian Utes in 22nd, 23rd Nick Tullo, and 24th Joshua Flores.
And then I believe that will just about do it for this starting grid.
Actually, we had two more. We had Jason Grider in 25th and Javier Rapules in 26th. My bad.
I was just going to note that Javier Rapules has not actually taken to the racetrack for this formation lap, so I believe we will have only 25 starters. Yeah, only 25 Formula V cars set to tackle this narrow, this tight, this technical and twisty racetrack to get this season underway. Delighted all of you can join us here on Slow Motion Broadcasting for the start of a brand new season, a brand new adventure with some champions to be crowned and some fun to be had. The green flag is out, and the drivers are on their way. Drivers already shuffling around a little bit farther in the back, but Jason Green getting off to a dream start, trying to take the race lead, and he does so. Ethan Orr slapping into P2. We got some drivers going side by side. That's James Matthew Sheldon and A. Coliseo heading off through turn number 1. Some more drivers going side by side. Look at Michelle Lynn in the 215 car. She won the draft party last night. She's looking to keep that momentum. She was oh so close to winning that Spec 2 championship for season 1. She's going to look to try and get her third. Let's see. Heading down this back straightaway for the first time, these draft heavy FVs always going to have a good battle on our hands heading down into turn number 4 around this racetrack, and let's see how it's all going to work out. Russ Telker may have had a moment. He's dropped down like a rock. Jason Green, though, still at the front of the field. He's floating up like a helium balloon as James Matthew Sheldon. He's going hung out to dry on the inside line, hang off through 5 and 6.
Yeah, looks like we got a pretty clean start here. A couple side-by-side moments there, but for the most part, we've kind of single-filed out here, which is sort of what you need to do around here for at least the first lap anyway. Oh, we got somebody, I believe that was, I think we lost some Moaz on that one. Somebody is off. I believe that's some Moaz spun. Either got touched or just spun on his own there. We'll have to go back and check that out. But yeah, it looks like everybody's kind of sorting it out, single file here as we go. You want to kind of just groove in here. Not an easy place to pass, so you really need to set them up and get aggressive with it, Ron.
Yeah, that's a good thing to raise around this racetrack. Despite the fact you do have those heavy braking zones, especially into turn number 4, sometimes you may have to force your will upon your competitors, and sometimes that can be done rather well with a little bit of coercion. Sometimes you may need a crowbar, but either way, you get the move done, you get the move done. That's all that matters at the end of the day. These drivers will have to worry about those incident points, but hey, we still got a whole lot of this race left to go. Just ticking over the 2-minute mark into this 30-minute race right about now. About a lap and a corner on the board. Jason Green still finding himself in the race lead. However, starting to see a front pack breakaway with Jason Green, Ethan Orr, James Sheldon, and Nate Coliseo occupying your top 4 with about a second gap to Antonio Reese, who is still your current leader in the Masters category. Some side-by-side racing involving Michelle Lynn and our SMB colleague, Mr. Guido Marzuki, heading down into turn number 4. Looks like Michelle going to get that move done in the 215 car side-by-side right behind, loving Leon Frost and Michael McConnell. McConnell, a veteran in the Weekend Warriors. Leon Frost, on the other hand, he's getting his first taste of these FV races and clearly getting shown, not necessarily the chrome horn, but getting showed who his boss hang down into turn 4.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to get to know people out here pretty quick, especially at a track like this. It's pretty intimate out there. There's not a lot of room, so you kind of have to play ball with your competitors out there for sure. To get a pass done around here, you almost need a passing partner in a way. If somebody decides to try to block you or make a late move to try to block you or something like that, it's really never going to end up very well. So you kind of have to see those passes coming, maybe let them happen, and then live to fight another day every once in a while. But it looks like things are going pretty smoothly here so far, Ron. I don't want to jinx it, but that was a really good start.
And as we see this race continue to settle into a groove, we'll answer a question from Tam in the YouTube chat. James Sheldon, currently classed in 3rd, is a Spec 1 driver. There's a green ticker next to him, but I can assure you he is in Spec 1.
We will
get
fix that.
Small little tweak reserved in a couple of moments' time. Antonio Risha set the fast lap of the race side by side, hang down into turn number 1. Leon Frost in the 4 car looking to flex his muscles and got a move done. Got it done successfully as taking a look to see some drama potentially heading down into turn number 8. Oh, that's Felix Samoes spinning, not contact being made, just lost it on his own, and looped it coming out of turn number 8. Felix Samoes, your reigning spec racer for the Weekend Warriors champion. He was pretty impressive in the Week 13 Weekend Warriors runoffs about a week ago at this point here on SMB. Won that race at Maunz in the rain, but clearly here at Cadwell in the dry, not getting the same luck.
Yeah, no, not at all. You know, it's actually pretty uncharacteristic to see Felix Samoes spinning like that. It's usually he's at the front of the pack, that's where he stays and that's where he finishes, but today, you know, the Formula V is a bit of a new challenge for him there, and it looks like he just maybe asked a little too much of the car there.
Yeah, just asked a bit too much of that race car heading down into turn number 8. Turn 8 around this track. I mean, you could pick any racetrack around, any corner around this racetrack and kind of say, hey, there's nothing really like this in the world of iRacing. Turn 8, I feel like, is one of the oddest corners of them all. It's such a steep descent. Heading down into the corner, it feels like you're dropping off a cliff when you're going through there. So trying to get the braking zone right in these FVs, super tough. And then carrying the momentum through the corner as well. I've mentioned this a lot, and this is going to be a horse's corpse that we hit with a baseball bat all throughout this season. These FV cars require so much momentum. It reminds me of my karting days, running in single-speed karts and having to go through these corners with a lot of momentum, turn it in, and make sure you can arc through the corner as best as you possibly can. These cars, not worlds of horsepower. There's not even like a country of horsepower. If you could describe the horsepower of a Formula V as a country, it would probably be the size of like the Vatican City or something like that. Little power in these race cars. So if you mess it up heading through these corners, you don't have the boot scoon boogie behind you in the driver's seat to be able to come out of these corners and make up for that mistake. You gotta worry about that momentum and keeping the speed heading off through these corners.
Yeah, absolutely. These are definitely momentum-based cars. Is Sheldon just dipping 2 wheels in the grass there and getting away with it? Pretty slick stuff there. No pun intended. But yep, you definitely got to use every piece of horsepower you got around here and every piece of momentum you have. You're genuinely like throwing the car through some of these corners, especially this one coming up right here. You can pretty much just let the ground catch the car right there. It's one of the more fun corners in iRacing for sure. You get it just right, kind of throw the car into it, and the ground kind of rises up out of the earth to meet you, and you get that gravitron effect pushing the tires into the ground and a little more grip, and you can just sort of throw the car around in it, and you really need to do that. And the V's, as we see, I believe that was, oh, you know what? He just blinked right out of, was Reese, Antonio Reese spinning right in front of James Sheldon, so that was kind of unfortunate there. Looks like he just asked a little too much of the car again in that corner we were talking about in the beginning.
Yeah, the problem with turn number 17 around this racetrack, considering you're so busy with the slalom section right before then that we'll be able to get a good view of as we take a look at a replay of this moment for Antonio Reese. From my personal experience, it's super tough to actually get it into gear. You're dipping down into second, and to go from second to third or third to second in these Formula V cars, it's like trying to pick up antimatter with chopsticks. You can't really do it that successfully, and I learned that the hard way. Heading off through there, you end up in neutral in a car like this, you carry a bit too much speed, don't have that engine braking, you're going to be screwed, for lack of a better term. And unfortunately, I think Antonio Reese learned that the hard way, and he now finds himself in a hard spot. This is stuck between a rock and a hard place for Antonio Reese. He's got Michael McConnell, the Spec 1 driver, battling around him, but he's also got Kurt Nunez, the Master driver, running in P2, and Jim Brewster, another Masters driver, running in P3, and just getting a move done there on Michael McConnell coming out turn number 5. Holy cow, Jim.
Yeah, Jim Brewster. He will definitely get a nose up the inside of you. Jim is a consummate racer. I've raced him many times, and he's, if you give him a gap, he's gonna take it, and that's the way it goes there, and that's exactly what he just did. That's how you have to do it sometimes out here, especially at Cadwell. You just have to sort of make it happen. Is he gonna try again? Nope, thinks better of it. Can't really get a pass done into that corner without either A, losing a ton of time, or B, ending up off the road. So pretty much better just not to make that one happen. But pretty nice pass there from Jim for sure.
Yeah, that was a very well executed move heading down through that 5 and 6 section right at the top end of the circuit. This track I could really best describe as being one of two halves. You got the back half of the circuit that we're seeing these drivers exit right now. Then you go into the front half with a long sweeping bends and a ridiculous amount of grass runoff area. It's just two different racetracks that these drivers have to try and wrap their brains around, which is certainly a test for these drivers, regardless of what kind of car you put them in around this racetrack. I think John Toms just had a quick splash and dash, maybe to pick up a faster pair, potentially that, or he had some sort of penalty. Not entirely sure what was going on there. He did stop in his box, so if that was a drive-through, he would have to come in and serve that again, and it would be rather early on to pick up a penalty in this race. Anyone who hasn't tuned into the Weekend Warriors before here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, firstly, welcome. We hope you enjoy all of the action here today, and the penalties are given out at 13x. So you hit 13x, you're going to get yourself a penalty. You hit 18x, you're going to get a slap on the wrist from iRacing Race Control and get disqualified. So 13x, lucky number 13, you pick up a drive-through, and then 18x, it gets sent to the Shadow Realm.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I've been, well, you know, unfortunately, Ron, I've been both of those before.
Right here at this track.
Yeah, right here at this track, actually. Yeah, actually, that was a just disastrous one for me. I'll never forget there. There was one of my first rain races, and it was absolutely downpouring here. And I was doing really well. Honestly, I felt like I had kind of the car under me. People were crashing all around me. And then it just kind of got wetter and wetter and wetter, and I did not adjust my driving to the wetness, and I just started spinning and crashing, and it was a really, really big learning experience for me here in iRacing. I from now on, you know, make sure I'm looking over at that weather, making sure I'm making good note of whether or not the track is getting wetter as I drive, and it was a good learning experience. But yep, 13 till you get a drive-through, and that pretty much ends your race. You got to sit in there for, I believe it's about 30 seconds. You're never going to make that back in a race. That's it. You're done if you get one of those, pretty much. And if you get more than that, then you're actually out. You just get zapped right out of the session.
You just get dragged into the Shadow Realm. That's usually what happens in a situation like that. I've been there, done that. Don't worry here, Josh. As I will note, as we're seeing this race continue to develop in side-by-side racing, flaring up involving Parvin Ladar and Michael McConnell. And let's see how this action goes heading down into turn number 4. Ladar, we've seen him rather sporadically throughout season 1, I should say, of 2025. But whenever he shows up in Spec 2, he's usually rather quick, and was dealing with some slight technical issues last night, but I think he's gotten those sorted out, has his FPS taken care of, and now finds himself running in P11. That's second of the Masters drivers as it stands at the present moment, so well done to him. We'll note that Falling Anvil has come down to strike Kurt Nunez in the 918 car. He's dropped down to P23, so not sure what went wrong with him. We'll also note that Jason Grider and Russell Telker have retired from this race. I think I was hearing from Russ Telker in the YouTube chat that he was running into some connection issues. Meanwhile, I think Jason Grider in the 552 car was involved in some sort of drama. Not sure what happened. May need to load up a replay to see what happened to the driver of the 552 car, and maybe see if Kurt Nunez got a piece of this action as well, because he's dropped down to the 918.
I think you did, Ron. I'm pretty sure we are about to see them get collected here. So looks like Grider has a little moment there, just a bit of a tank flapper, and he's going to sit there. Huh. Okay. Inconclusive. Not sure what happened to Kurt Nunez. Yeah, looks like he's just taking some sun there. Let's see if we can figure out what happened to Kurt Nunez here quickly. So they were really just back-to-back with each other, but had nothing to do with each other here.
And let's have a look at this to see what happened to Nunez in that 918 car. And
it's a bit of a rare moment there for McConnell, I think, honestly. He's one of the cleanest drivers I have ever raced, to be totally honest. And it looks like he kind of just got into the back of Nunez a little bit. I'm not really sure that was actually his fault. You know, it looked like Nunez maybe put the brakes or the clappers on a little early there, but, you know, regardless, it ended up in the back of Nunez and spun him there, so unfortunate for him.
Yeah, I will say in reference to the final corner around this racetrack, it's one where there's so many different lines that these drivers take. There's some that, as we see side-by-side racing involving Ken spinning, contact being made. That's Suleiman Khan and Felix Samoa's coming out turn number 8. I was just going to note that Samoa's in the 31 car tried to go for the dive and it did not work for him at all. Clearly, turn 8 and Felix Samoa is going on and going together about as well as Peanut Butter and Cyanide. As we take a look at the dive, hit the curb on the inside in these low slung V's. That's going to end in tears, as that was a pretty significant whack with Khan to the side of him. I think there's some rather big damage to Felix Samoa's car. He's going to try it desperately to get out of the way of Nick Tolo and Joshua Flores, who are coming up in tow, as nearly contacting down into turn number 17. What I was going to raise about this corner, turn 18. See a lot of drivers who try and go about it in totally different ways. There's some who just try to arc through it and hit the apex as usual. There's some people slow down a bit heading into the corner to try and carry the speed through and have a great run coming out of the corner, which is super important considering it goes onto the start finish straight away and through this flat out turn of turn number 1 into another flat out turn of turn number 2. So clearly the momentum being important out the final turn. But I think that may have been what caused that small little schmozzle, just a difference in views of how to take turn 18.
Yeah, absolutely. That is not an easy one for sure. And yeah, you've said it pretty much exactly right there. There's so many lines through it, and trying to get slowed down for it, as you mentioned earlier, through those S's, it's almost like you kind of trip over yourself a little bit sometimes. You take a little bit too much speed through those S's, and you want to get on the brakes, but the wheels are off the ground. You know, you're actually unstable or unsettled. You're a little bit sideways, or you're a little bit off the ground, and you just can't get on the brakes as hard as you want to. And then before you know it, you're plowing through this corner right here. And it's happened to me a bunch of times. It'll happen to me again. Same thing with, but with everybody else, I imagine, as well, especially if you're trying to get a pass done through there. It's just a really difficult spot of the track.
Yeah, super tough. I think it would probably be the best way we can describe the entirety of this racetrack and the entirety of this race, for that matter. We're now past the halfway mark, though. Jason Green finds himself in the race lead, only about a tenth and a half between himself and Ethan Orr for P1 and P2. You have to go about a second and a half to find James Matthew Sheldon in third, Nate Coliseo and Leon Frost rounding out your top 5. We'll note again, Leon Frost in the number 4 car, making a series debut. He was super quick in the Formula V draft party last night, and showing that pace yet again, currently classed in P5, and he was actually a series recruit from Tortolo. So a nice little bit of circularity there. Tor probably not going to be participating a whole lot throughout the season, considering his real-life racing adventures, which is part of the reason why he's out here today. Well, out of this race, I should say. He's out somewhere outside of his sim rig at the present moment. That's probably the best way I could put it, as currently leading in all of our classes. Obviously, Jason Green leading overall and leading in Spec 1. Antonio Reese finds himself in the race lead of the Masters category. Nice recovery drive from him after that moment we saw hang down into turn 17. He's gone back up into the Masters class lead and running P7 overall with a healthy cushion between himself and Michelle Lynn, who is your current leader in Spec 2. I think Jason Green may have had a moment coming through the chicane.
I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but that was through that section where the jump is basically really, really hard. Little S section, super tight, almost doubles back on itself. And it looks like, I wouldn't be surprised there if Ethan Orr decided to kind of force an issue and Jason Green took to the grass to avoid it. But let's have a quick look here on.
Yeah, let's take a look to see this moment. Heading off through that chicane, super tricky to try and get right with some curbs that can really do you dirty. Ran wide coming out of turn 12, ends up in the dirt, and that's what's going to give Ethan Orr the race lead.
Yeah, so again, it looks like what I was saying earlier, you can kind of let the car grab here, and then just a little too much speed, just a little bit too much grass on the left side wheels there, and that's going to pull him off the road a bit. And he did the right thing there to kind of just probably take a quick look behind him, make sure he got by cleanly, and then continue to race instead of trying to pull her right back on the track. So I would imagine we're going to get a pretty dicey top 4 here now, Ron. It's looking like this is going to really come down to the wire with these last 4 drivers.
Yeah, and it has now turned back into a 4-car battle. I noted a matter of like a lap and a half ago that it was a 1.6 second gap between Jason, at the time it was Ethan Orr in P2 and James Matthew Sheldon in third. They're now all vacuum sealed together, so we're back in the anchovy situation. These drivers still very close. Ethan Orr in the race lead now, Jason Green in P2. James Sheldon in the 108 car. He was involved for the race win 1 season ago at this very racetrack. It was himself and Tortello battling for the lead at that point in time, and they came to blows, heading off through that 11 and 12 section for the 11th race of season 1 here for the Weekend Warriors Formula V series. So James Sheldon very quick around this track. Ethan Orr and Jason Green looking to flex their muscles as well. But I don't know, man. I think we need to keep tabs on the 108. He's going to be quick.
Yeah, 100% for sure. We know he's always quick. He's one of those guys, too, that, in these situations, he just seems to be able to get by people. He just seems to be able to make things happen, as it looks like he's kind of looking up the inside of Jason there, at least letting him know he's there anyway, and it's exactly how you want to do it. You want to put some pressure around a track like this on the guy in front of you. You want to make him think that you're going to do something ridiculous so that he stays in his rearview mirror, hopefully makes a mistake, and then you can get by him. And that's kind of one of the only ways you're going to get around somebody around here, unless you really force it or get an excellent run. It looks like James Sheldon's getting right here, and he's going to be able to probably make this one work. I think he's got it. Yeah, and he's got that one. And a little bit of touch there as well from Jason. So a little bit surprised, actually, that Jason didn't kind of just back out of that one. It was pretty much a done deal there, but it's going to lose him a little bit more time, but he's definitely not out of it.
I got to say one thing in reference to Jason Green. He, by and large, is one of the most calm, cool, and collected drivers in this series. Jason Green's fast. He's a very patient driver as well. He knows when to give. He knows when to take. But I say this as a guy who, listens back to these broadcasts, put together the highlights reel for the Racing Line podcast on Tuesday nights. He will probably be listening to me say this, and I will say this with the utmost confidence. Jason Green's gunning for that championship this season. He's come oh so close in the past 2 seasons. Really, if it wasn't for him imposing a race ban on himself, it probably would have been his in Season 1 of 2025, but just sadly did not go his way. However, come time for Season 2, Jason Green, he's got to look to put that #1 car back on that race car, and not just in the form of a 160. As I say that, though, the front pack has really, they're spread out by quite a lot. I think there may have been some sort of incident, because their lap times, Nick Alessio at a 147, Jason Green in the 140s, and some of the other drivers not very quick as well. I think I may have just pulled off a commentator's jinx, because that front 4 pack that we saw vacuum sealed together not terribly long ago, yet again has spread out like a bit of butter on a hot piece of toast.
Yeah, looks like we had a bit of an incident here with Colacio potentially. And it looks like, we'll change cameras here, because I think that tree cover is going to get us. And it looked like, yeah, you know what? Let's get on board with them, see if we can't get a better answer as to exactly what happened there. It looks like a lot of curb right there. Oh, he survived that one, so that was pretty close there. Lots of curb. I wonder if that was a bit of an off track. We're coming through the S's and just kind of unsettled the car a little bit through there. Maybe took a bit too much curb, but ended up in the wall, unfortunately. No damage, though.
Yeah, not a lot of damage. I think he maybe tweaked one of the front tires potentially with that small little tap of the barrier, as we see side-by-side racing involving Nick Tullo and Felix Samoas heading down into turn number 4. We'll note that section's super easy to make that mistake. I did that last night, if I'm being completely honest. Those curbs, as much as you will see these drivers obviously take the liberties, because in these Formula V's, shaving a couple of feet off of your lap is going to make a huge difference come time for the end of it. Very easy to have a moment like that befall you, and sadly it looks like that happened to Colacio a couple of moments ago, as I think there may have been a moment involving Leon Frost. He's dropped down to 7th as Nate Colacio has come into the pits.
Yeah, looks like maybe I was wrong about that damage, Ron. I think maybe you're right. He did damage a wheel there and has had to pull it into the pits, unfortunately. But yeah, that's going to knock him down the order quite a bit. So not a great showing for Colacio today. But, back to Jason Green, we were talking about a little bit earlier there. Even if he doesn't get the win today, like you were saying, he's just so calm, cool, and collected there. He's almost definitely going to pick up a podium, and that's how you win a championship, honestly. If you see, something like happened earlier there, if he would have tried to force that issue a bit more, lost a wheel or something, then boop, you get a big fat 0 at the end of the race. And he's going to get a 3rd today, most likely at the very least here, and that's just points towards the championship. So we'll see how it goes. These top 3 guys are going to be battling it out, I think, all season.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing a lot of these drivers be consistent cast of characters at the front of the field. There is no doubt about that. Antonio Reese has had some sort of moment in the 914. The 9 Shining Armor, I think he got whacked with a hammer.
I just noticed that
scene from Monty Python. Here's what happened to Antonio Reese. Oh, it's coming out of turn number 4, hits that curb and loops it coming out of that. That's going to take Antonio Reese out of the Masters lead and now finding himself in the lead of the Masters category. As a result of all that drama, going to be Jim Brewster. He kicked off season 1 of 2025, the first time we've seen the Masters category in the Weekend Warrior Formula V Series 1 season ago. Kicked that season off with a win. He's looking for a repeat here for season 2 of 25.
Yeah, you know, Jim's always there. He's always there. He's definitely a consummate, like I said earlier, competitor, and he's going to race you right to the end. And well, it paid off for him today. He's definitely leading Masters by quite a bit now. Antonio Reese having a couple problems today. Definitely has by far the best profile pick here that I have seen yet, though. That's yeah, definitely applause for that one, Antonio. I love it. The liveries you guys bring, or that he brings as well with his cars, are just fantastic. So unfortunately, though, a couple anvils today. Looks like he's still in the fight here, though. He could still get up there.
Yeah, so it was not it was not a hammer crashing onto his head with the helmet he has on. That was a falling anvil coming down and crashing onto him. That's unfortunate though for Antonio Reese.
It's a mace.
He's hoping to catch a break as it stands at the moment. So yeah, and Antonio Reese. I've always called him Reese for the longest time. We guys need to switch it up. So Antonio Reese having a moment coming out of turn number 5. He's dropping down the running order still in P10, losing touch of this battle a teeny tiny bit involving himself, Michael McConnell, Jim Brewster, and we also got Nate Coliseo in the midst of all that in the number 8 car. He's come out of the pits after that moment, and we'll note as we have come up to a tick over 5 minutes left to go in this race. Ethan Orr still leads it. 1.3 seconds is a gap to himself and James Matthew Sheldon. So I have a feeling that it may be Ethan Orr's race to win, and that would be a pretty good way for him to kick off his championship challenge in the Spec 1 category. But James Sheldon, he's still within striking distance as well. That gap can diminish. About 1.2 seconds is usually when you get in the draft of the car in front. So as I said that it may be in Ethan Orr's hands, we're going to see that gap drop down incredibly.
Yeah, I think you're about right as far as the distance, though. These things, the Vs, I'm not super duper familiar with the Vs. I have driven them, but not nearly as much as these guys do. And I have heard that they are by far the heaviest draft car in iRacing. I mean, other than maybe the oval stuff, but the amount of draft that you can get in these cars is almost ridiculous. It's almost a little bit ridiculous, but I believe it starts, you're right, probably around 1 second or so, and then you really start feeling that pull from the car in front of you, and looks like he's kind of just out of that a little bit as we're getting pretty froggy up here in this pack of, what is it, we got a Masters and 2 S1 drivers here, and then Antonio Reese. So you've got basically 2 S1 drivers in a Masters sandwich here. Antonio Reese wants this back, you can tell, and it looks like Coliseo kind of playing ball with him here as well. So we'll see how this one works out, but oh man, Antonio's got to be careful here for sure.
Yeah, this is the point of the race where these drivers may go for some slightly more opportunistic moves than they probably have done throughout all of this race up to this point. And that's usually the treacherous spot. That's a trouble spot for sure. These drivers looking to avoid that at all costs. They've made thus far in this race. They kind of want to be able to make it to the checkered flag. We'll also note that John Toms and Brian Szynski have dropped out of this race as well. So the 277 and the 841 cars respectively falling out. Brian's brother Dan Szynski still in the race. He's classed down in 20th as it stands at the present moment. Joshua Flores, I believe, was he the driver that we saw come into the pits earlier on? He finds himself in 21st, quite a long ways back of Dan Szynski, and also potentially at risk of getting lapped by James Sheldon in the not too far off future. A side-by-side racing involving Antonio Reese and Michael McConnell heading off through turn number 1. It's single files out with McConnell remaining in P8, but I'm curious as to whether or not we may see some lapping between now and the checkered flag. I will also say that Ethan Orr had some sort of moment. No. He's now down in 3rd. So I was just going to know, man, that gap increased a lot. And then I realized, oh, no, it wasn't a 3.8 second gap to Ethan Orr. It was a 3.8 second gap to Jason Green. So Ethan Orr, I think, may have overclocked it a little bit. Let's see.
Yeah, looks like he coming down the hill, I believe it was there. And again, that's such an easy thing to do there. You're asking so much of the car on the brakes and turning at the same time, coming downhill, and pretty easy mistake to make. But with so little time left in the race, man, you're just hating that happening. It just, man, that feels bad.
Just have a moment like that in the late stages of this race. That's going to sting. That is absolutely going to sting. James Matthew Sheldon not going to mind it one bit. He's on track for a victory with a white flag in the air. Only one more lap of race. Actually, no, I believe we may not be on a white flag lap. I think we just have barely two laps to go as Nate Colascio has had some sort of issue. I'm going to check to see whether or not he's completely dipped out of the session. Yes, he has. So Nate Colascio getting struck by a falling anvil in the number 8 car. He's dropping down the running order quite bad. Will be classed in at the very best, currently 19th. But he's going to get passed by Dan Szynski and Joshua Flores. As we're going to take a look to see what may have happened.
Yeah, it looks like so. He made it through there nice and clean.
I think this was a moment earlier when he hit the wall.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I think maybe we just lost Colascio. Possibly he just got zapped. I think maybe his connection, or he just he pulled over and stopped. I'm not really sure. We don't have telemetry on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily be able to blame him if he decides to call it a day. But again, we've seen some very close championship battles, so a little bit of an iffy call for him to just completely dip out of the race, even if he was going to finish a little bit farther in the back. Must have been something going on with him, but either way, the driver of the number 8 car going to be classed in 21st by the end of this race. Looking at some racing involving Michael McConnell and Antonio Race. That's heading off through turn number 6 and 7 right now into turn number 8. So through 6, 7, and 8, the drivers battling for 7th and 8th. Still running just about line astern with only a couple of seconds left to go on the clock. James Matthew Sheldon going to be taking the white flag in a few moments. It's even sun glare there. Holy cow, I think my perspective may have been a little bit different. A little nuclear bomb went off in the distance. Someone trying to bomb Ireland for some inexplicable reason. But either way, before I get my get slow motion broadcasting banned from YouTube in the country of Ireland, James Matthew Sheldon now in the white flag lap.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to pretty handily take this one away here. Does have a little bit of lap traffic to deal with here before the end of the lap, and we have seen this kind of go south a few times in a few of our races, but looks like he's probably going to clear him here no problem and go on to a fairly commanding win here. But you know, it looks like maybe we had something happen to Jim Brewster here too, but I can't actually find the telemetry either. And he has actually moved up a position or two, so actually maybe not. Maybe he is doing okay, but man, he's been able to gap 5 seconds from Jason Green since he took the lead. Now, I'm not sure if that's because Jason Green got caught up in a couple things, but Sheldon's showing some real pace here today.
Yeah, James Matthew Sheldon looking to get this season kicked off in the best way imaginable. It was a rather dramatic collision between himself and Tortolo, which nearly cost Tolo the championship last season with only a few races left to go. But instead, it looks like James Matthew Sheldon going to right the wrongs of one season ago and grab the win. The opening race of Season 2 of 2025, the driver of the 108 car, the British driver, looking to do as best as he possibly can. And as he heads his way down into turn number 17, only one more corner left to go, and the pink party is definitely going to be beginning. James Matthew Sheldon in the 108 car goes on to the start-finish straightaway to win the opening race of this Formula V Weekend Warriors season at Cadwell Park. He takes a checkered flag in first with a rather significant gap between himself and Jason Green. That's a big result for Sheldon. Green, though, credit where credit's due, ends up in second. Ethan Orr on the recovery drive ends up in third when everything is said and done. And to get the season kicked off in Spec 2, Michelle Lynn, the sponsor of today's broadcast, not going to get struck by the falling anvil.
Nice.
Instead, she's going to win it in Spec 2, and Jim Brewster a little bit farther behind. He's going to win it in the Masters category. So for 2 seasons in a row, gonna get this Formula V Weekend Warrior season kicked off in style with a win in the Masters class. But James Sheldon, the driver of the 108 car, getting off to a dream start for this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Some good wins there today for sure. Sheldon at the top, Michelle Lynn in S2, and Jim Brewster. A pretty hard-fought battle there for a P6 overall in Masters. Good job from Jim there for sure, and from Michelle for a P5 overall as well. So pretty awesome racing. We are definitely, the skill level is going up here with this group of drivers that we've been watching I have been watching at least for the last 3 seasons, and man, it's just providing some awesome racing. I remember the first time we came here in Cadwell, it was a bit of a mess, and now that was a really, really good race. Everybody clean. It's one of those things where it wasn't maybe the most eventful thing in the world, but we got lots of finishers. There are a few out here as well, but lots of finishers and really good start and everything as well. So that's a good one, man. And the top 3 here, Jason Green, Ethan Orr, and Matthew Sheldon here are going to have a pretty awesome season, I think, battling each other. And great recovery from Ethan Orr there as well. And we're going to be setting up some burning down here. I'm not exactly sure what Jason Green has planned, but we can guarantee it's something.
Yeah, whenever these drivers end up finishing this race, and anyone who hasn't tuned into a Weekend Warriors broadcast before, these drivers have a tradition of knocking the crap out of each other come time for the end of this race. Let's see what Jason Green has up his sleeve. I think they're going to be hitting the jump on the inside.
Boy.
Oh, look at that off in the distance. And let's see it from Green into it. There we go.
He's
Vaulting
gone.
over the barrier, and I think he lawn darted it.
Yep, I'm pretty sure he ballparked it. He ballparked lawn dart.
There.
Oh, there goes Guido with the gyro effect. Nicely done. Oh my
There's Michelle.
goodness.
Oh, Kurt Nunez going across the screen from left to right.
See if we got a couple more here. I think there's some new drivers. Let's see if Brian Hansen knows about burning the car down here. I think he's about to find out quickly coming down the hill that everybody is down here. Let's see if he just bombs it at the jump. I would imagine he's going to. Who wouldn't? And yeah, here we go. He's going to clear it.
Oh,
that was a good one.
He landed. Oh, what in the whoa,
Wow.
golly. That Formula V car turned into a Beyblade for a couple of seconds. What in the world did we just witness? I think that's
Love the
time
reference.
a Beyblade has been referenced in probably the history of not only this series, but I think the history of iRacing broadcasting, period.
Legendary Beyblades. Yes, very, very popular stuff. Yep, that was probably the best reference of 2025 yet. It's going to be a hard one to beat. It's always pretty funny watching this at the end. One of my favorite things to do. I absolutely love this. Oh, didn't make it. That's gonna hurt the back. Didn't quite make it. I love trying to clear that tire bundle there. And if you do it just right, like I said, I swear in the SRF I jumped and my nose was in the air and I smucked the brake and the nose actually tipped down and I landed all 4 wheels. So I swear the gyro effect works in this game. I could be wrong. Maybe I just got lucky, but it's Parvinder Ladar with some broken front suspension there. Let's see if we can't get some interviews. I think we got James and Jim here waiting in the interview room.
And we better see Michelle in there. Michelle, come into the Weekend Warriors interview area. We always want to have it. We got some cheesesteaks here for you. And if anyone who hasn't tuned into these broadcasts before is going to say that's rather offensive just because she's Philadelphia, and I'm from Philadelphia as well, so I can make all the soft pretzel, cheesesteak, and water bottle jokes that I possibly can. So
hard to offend a Philadelphian, isn't it? Isn't it fairly hard?
Very easy. It's hard to offend a Philadelphia in the ways that you usually offend a Philadelphia. Just say our sports teams suck and you'll get cursed out. So
okay.
I think with that being said, we will swiftly and abruptly move on and bring in, I will bring in James Matthew Sheldon, your winner at the end of this opening race of the season. James, welcome into the interview waiting. Well, welcome into the booth, I should say. And congratulations on the win to kick this season off. Talk us through it, man.
Yeah, amazing. It was, I didn't think I would win for the most part. I would just like to say, at some point I did run Jason really wide, and then I checked back at the replay, and there's like a foot of netcode in it. But I still feel like I should have given more space. And I think that was actually sort of the point where there was more of a gap between everybody, where Jason fell back a bit, and then I don't know what happened to Nate, but he fell back as well. And then Ethan was ahead of me by about like 1.8 or something. I was catching him a little bit, but not really. And then he spun out, and I just thought, oh my god, I just need to finish, and that's it.
Really, I think the saying to finish first you have to finish was exemplified in this race. Doubly so after that moment for Ethan coming through turn number 8. We saw a lot of drivers have a spin heading off through that section. So I want to ask you about the challenges of trying to get that corner nailed down right.
Yeah, it's a really tough track. I think most turns are quite hard, especially the hairpin that Ethan spun out. Like that's a tough one because you can just easily the camber just makes it so you want to slide your rears, and then especially that last right-hander that you need to go into second for. If you do it wrong, you just lose the car and you can't do anything about it. Especially later in the race where there's like barely any grip. So yeah, it's really tough. And the last sort of chicane section as well. If you clip the curb wrong, then you just go flying.
Yeah, I gotta say, from my experience running in the draft party last night that the Formula V drivers always like to be a part of, I remember hitting the curbs and having some very bad experiences, albeit very good reason why I'm behind the wheel, behind the microphone instead behind the wheel, and I will leave it off at that. But James, just about the best way you could get this season kicked off, but we're going to be heading to a rather different track in the form of Magny-Cours in 1 week's time. First time the Formula Vs have run there in the entire time they've been broadcasted with us here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. So what are your thoughts heading into that race in 1 week's time?
I'm actually quite excited for it because although there's a lot of big straights, I don't like big straights on tracks, but I've also there's a lot of technical sections as well, so I think I'll probably like that. I don't have a track yet, I've got to buy it, which not as good, but yeah, you know.
I gotta say, honestly, the only reason why I was excited about buying Magny-Cours was the fact I had to do a 4.5 hour long broadcast for it, and I'll just leave it at that. Magny-Cours still gonna be a fun track for these Formula Vs, and fingers crossed the racing is going to be good there as well. But James, thank you for joining us in the commentary booth, and before we let you go and celebrate this win, is there anybody you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Yeah, as always, thank you to you guys. Great broadcast. Thanks to Jim. Another season up and ready. It's already looking good. Thanks to Michelle for sponsoring. And did she win S2?
That she did.
Ah, well, good. She deserved that for sponsoring then. And also, I'd like to say sorry to Jason as well because I know I ran you too wide there. We'll see how that goes if I get any like penalties or whatever for that. But, yeah.
Well, but either way, man, congratulations on the win to get this season kicked off. Awesome to have a chat with you, and excited to see you back out on the racetrack at the not too far off future, man. Thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you. Bye.
And that right there was James Matthew Sheldon. One thing to raise about James Sheldon, first off, hopefully he doesn't mind the fact I use his middle name. I feel like James Matthew Sheldon just has a nice little ring to it, but he actually found this series in the YouTube chats of one of these SMB broadcasts, and I remember sending him some messages while we were on the air, being like, hey, yeah, join the series through this, that, and the other thing. But anyways, before I go on with any sort of anecdotes, Josh, I'll let you take dibs on who you want to have a chat with.
Yeah, let's grab Jim and get him in here. I'm not sure we've done an interview with him yet. Let's see if we can't grab him.
Hope you enjoy it.
Jim, what a race out there today, man. You definitely had to fight for that one a little bit. It looked like it was kind of back and forth, but you came out on top, man.
You
Good
didn't
job.
hear my speech. My speech
what's
was,
the speech?
if you survive today, you're going to do okay.
Ah, there you go. Well,
Yep.
it worked out. You
And,
did better than survive there. You're dicing it up. You made a couple good passes and everything, too. We caught a couple of them
spin down the hill?
on screen there. No, I think we maybe missed your spin, but we saw a couple
Yeah.
good passes, though.
Antonio did me a little rough. He stuck to my inside, heading towards the tight chicane going down the hill. And so I ended up going shallow and catching the grass and doing a 360. And I touched Nate, and he disappeared. So I guess that was 13 or 18 incidents for him. But I just got back on the gas and only lost one position and kept going.
That's what happened there. So you filled that out for us. We lost Nate, and we were like, what happened to Nate? So I guess that's what happened to Nate. Now we know.
Yeah, Antonio really squeezed me hard. But at one point, me, Antonio, and Kurt were running together, the three masters, fighting for the lead. And at one lap, we all passed Michael going down the back straight into that corner after the draft. All three of the whole masters class went past Michael. And it's like, poor Michael, we mugged him.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, he's such a clean driver out there, too. You guys were racing so clean, but yeah.
Well, we didn't touch him. We just, because you know how once somebody gets pushed to the outside, then if the next two really follow in tight, you really can't get back in. And that's what happened. It wasn't dirty or anything, but yeah, it was a tough track. It's all there is to it, and it's slippery. Everybody just talked about the wood section. The whole car is so loose, and then that last hairpin is so tough to figure out. In fact, I don't know if anybody ever really masters it, but anyway. Welcome to a new season. I hope you looked at the schedule. I hope you liked the ones we picked out. Next week, all three leagues are going to Magny-Cours. which I don't think anybody's raced at. And it's an interesting track, so I think next weekend is going to be a lot of fun. I haven't scheduled any rain. I think it might just skip the rain for a season. It doesn't seem to really affect us, but we have a couple other new tracks we're going to take. Remember how much fun the Fords had at Saxon Ring? We're going to take the Formula Vs to Saxon Ring too. So I think maybe that'll be fun for the Vs too. But anyway, we're on a new season, guys. It's all fresh. The points are all fresh, and we're going to have some fun.
Awesome. Yeah, big thank you to you, Jim, for all the work you do in the background to set these V races up, and also the drivers and our sponsors and stuff as well that make all this happen. We do have drivers sponsoring every race here, and it keeps us going, right? So we really want to make sure we thank everybody who does that for us as well.
Michelle didn't get the sponsor anvil today.
No, she didn't.
Record had been whenever she sponsored a race, she would get an anvil. Anyway,
well, you know what we did, Jim? Is we stopped using the darn anvil at the top of the screen. So we're using the dual dime now. The anvils aren't falling anymore. I think we might have to keep it that way for Michelle's benefit.
Okay. So happy. Say hello to Tam. She's a year older now since the last time we talked to her. So I haven't talked to her recently, but she had a birthday last week. So I hope she got to watch all the action, and I hope tomorrow's races are good. I think they should be. Thanks for all the help, guys. You guys do great work. See you next week.
Sounds good, Jim. Great win.
That right there was Jim Brewster. Always good to have a chat with Jim at the end of these races, and well done on him for grabbing yet another win in the Masters category. Hey, if Urgmani the janitor isn't going to show up, we may need to think about the series admin himself grabbing the Masters championship at the end of this season. But we got time for one more chat, and it's going to be with the sponsor of today's broadcast, who did not get struck by falling anvil. Michelle, you called your shot during the Formula V draft party last night, saying that it was going to happen, but that falling anvil did not come, and you walk away with a Spec 2 win.
Oh my god. Wow. Today was a really hard race. Yeah, I did well in the draft party last night, which almost guarantees you're going to get murdered the next day. I also sponsored it, which almost always guarantees I'm going to get murdered in the race. But today was all about clean start, and just drive extremely clean laps the whole race. Maybe don't push it 100% in every corner. Just be consistent and don't F up. I didn't curse. Because I knew that there would be a lot of attrition in today's race. And if I could just remain consistent, those positions would just come to me. And I feel like I had the good approach, and no anvils, thank God. So, yeah.
Yeah, those falling anvils did not come crashing down on you, and grabbing the Spec 2 win to kick this season off. You were oh so close to winning that Spec 2 championship one season ago. Andrew Love tipped you at the end of it all, but is that going to be the goal here for this season, for season 2?
God, I hate to jinx myself right now, but Andrew, at least that I know of, he might have more, but I believe Andrew has 2 S2 championships, and I have 2 S2 championships, so it's first 1 to 3. I don't know. We'll see.
That would be a good storyline that we need to keep tabs on all throughout the battle, to see who's going to get the third.
Yeah, the hat trick. Sorry, my sports references aren't always the best. I think that's right.
Yeah, it's quite
we
alright.
We need a Canadian. Where's Josh? He'll know.
Mr. Wilkie.
Hello.
Hello.
No, sorry, I gapped out for a second there, guys. The production side of things here. Every once in a while, I miss a question. I'd love to answer it for you, though. What was the question?
A hat trick, right? That's 3.
That's correct. Yes, a hat trick is 3. So that's it's a hockey thing. I believe it's a hockey thing. So 3 goals in a row is a hat trick.
Yeah.
See, Michelle and I are from Philadelphia, and considering the fact that the Flyers haven't won anything since 1975, I think we completely blank out the existence of hockey in our heads.
That's fair. That's fair.
Oh my god, but I am old enough to have gone to those games in the 70s with my dad, so that also doesn't say much.
Oh, that must have been cool.
Sorry, I'm exhausted. That was a really exhausting hard race.
Yeah, it definitely was around a racetrack like this. 18 turns and all, really no room for any sort of rest. Even that back straightaway, you're still turning throughout a decent chunk of it, so it's super
and almost
tough
every
to,
corner
to
wants
try
to
and race
kill
around
you.
here. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. I know it well.
It's basically, I could best describe it as like, it's like walking around with a floor made entirely of mouse traps. That's the best way I could probably describe a race around here. There's always somewhere that's going to trip you up. And Michelle, I was in that FV draft party last night, so you can attest to this. I hit everything except for the hot dog cart, so I can definitely speak volumes about how tough this track is. But Magny
It's really
Core
hard.
in 1 week.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, we got don't worry, it's quite all right. We got Magny Core coming up in 1 week. That's gonna be an odd one.
I don't know it. I've never driven that track at all. I need to
Big
learn that
question
track.
mark.
That'll be this week's project.
Honestly,
it
I'm trying to
High
think
speed
of,
track?
I would say medium speed.
Little A,
It's
little
another
B.
technical one.
Yeah.
Got some straightaways, got some heavy braking zones, got some tough turns there as well.
Yeah, I just don't have any experience. So this week I will A, learn the track, B, make a setup for the track, and then hopefully, get my S together and do okay. I have no idea.
Try and get your S together and try not to F up at the end.
Yes,
I think that
exactly.
would probably be the best way we could say this on the air. Try.
Exactly.
I mean, especially in these cars and some of these races, I've definitely learned that participating in the other the draft nights on Fridays. Really it's super important to try and do well in these races, to try and get your shift together in the week before.
Yes.
And I will leave it at that. But Michelle, thank you for joining us in the commentary booth, and also thank you very much for sponsoring today's broadcast. And before we let you go and celebrate this Spec 2 win, is there anybody you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Always have to shout out Jim for getting the scheduling and everything done. Shout out Stevie. Shout out everyone who I run with. These guys are just such a great group of guys. And also, this is a throwback, but I'm gonna shout out Jason Green and Trenton, because the last race we did here, they helped me with, I forget the name, but it's like the second to last corner, that really sharp second gear turn. And they showed me a different way of doing it than I was, and it greatly changed my lap times, and it's not only faster, but it's also like safer. So I'm gonna just thank them as well, because I could not have done today without that knowledge.
I feel like I may need some lessons about that corner as well. After doing the Formula V draft party last evening, I am doing this broadcast with very little sleep because my experience hanging through turn number 17 haunted my nightmares. So, Michelle, thank you very much for joining us in the commentary booth. Well done on the Spec 2 win, and excited to see you back out on the track for the rest of the season.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Bye.
That was Michelle Lynn, your Spec 2 winner at the end of this race here at Cadwell Park. Josh, that was a brilliant way to get this season started. And I think we'll get the results loaded up at the end of the interviews, at the end of this broadcast. Go through the first results page of this season here for Season 2 of 2025 for the Formula V Weekend Warriors. It's not Week 12, but we've got 12 weeks of racing actions to look forward to for all of the Weekend Warriors. And we kick it off with James Matthew Sheldon winning this race in the 108 machine. Jason Green going to finish right behind in P2. It was a close finish between himself and Ethan Orr. They round out your overall podium. Guido Marzuki, SMB's very own, finishes in a rather under the radar fourth, so well done to Guido. Michelle Lynn, who we just spoke to a couple of moments ago, is your Spec 2 winner, finishing in fifth. Jim Brewster is your Masters winner, finishing in sixth. Michael McConnell ends up in seventh. Ken Poulin in eighth. Parvinder Ladar in P9. And Suleiman Khan will round out your top 10 at the end of this first race of the season. As we look through the rest of the running order here, we have Brian Hansen, classed in P11. Nick Tullo is going to finish in 12th. Chris Scriven ends up in lucky number P13 in the 442 car. Curtin Nunez in 14th. Florian Utz in the number 15 car. Another driver making their debut here in this Formula V Weekend Warriors series. Dan Szynski ends up in P16. The last of the cars to take the checkered flag on the lead lap. It's followed by Felix Samoa as Leon Frost, both of which are on their series debut, rounding out your top 18. Antonio Reese in 19th, Joshua Flores in 20th, Nate Colasio in 21st, John Toms ends up in 22nd, Brian Szynski in 23rd, Jason Greider in 24th, Russ Telker is classed in 25th, and Javier Rapules did not take the start of this first race of the season. Josh, a race where we have some new winners. We have some drivers who are going to be forces to be reckoned with, I think, all throughout this season.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing, the whole level of everything kind of come up here over the last couple seasons. Everybody's got quicker. Everybody's gotten a little bit cleaner. I think we're going to have a really good season here. We'll probably be getting a little bit more drivers and stuff too as the season goes on here. I think this first one being at Cadwell, few people kind of just don't get this track. Maybe they're a little bit scared of it, so we'll probably get a couple more drivers over the course of the season. But either way you look at it, we have a great pool of drivers here, and the competition level just keeps going up, Ron.
And the next race of the season is going to be at Magny-Cours. That is going to be a good one for these competitive drivers to put on some great racing action. And speaking of the great racing action, you can come to expect it every single week here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, because have it be known, we've got you covered pretty much every single day at this point. On Tuesdays, you can catch the action for the American Muscle Series, some old-fashioned Mustang racing action. Just also, by the way, posted the perspective of a certain person by the name of Matt Malone, who just so happens to stream iRacing, and his perspective of the last round of the American Muscle Series at Road America. So you can check that out on the videos tab here on the Slow Motion Broadcasting, and check out the AMS Series on Tuesday nights at 9:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then for Wildcard Wednesdays, we have got you covered. For the next 3 weeks, we've got the season finale races from the Ray Esports Club Racing League, and just this past week, we kicked off a brand new season of the Sim Racers Group Intermediate F4 Championship. You can catch the Club Series at 8:30 p.m. and the SRG Series at 9:45. Then come time for the weekends, we have got you covered with the Weekend Warriors. Just saw this Formula V Series that you can catch on Saturdays at 2:10. Actually happens to be not 2:10. Usually 2:20, happens to be 3:20 now because of the time
we'll
change.
change that.
Then for the other Weekend Warriors, the Formula Fords, you can catch them actually at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And then the Spec Racer Fords 2 hours after that. And that's not even the end of the racing action on Sundays, for that matter. As come time for Sunday nights, we've got you covered. The XSLR Series rings in the second quarter of their schedule. They've already had 4 dirt races. They've now got 4 dirt road course races to try and tackle. They're swapping out the 410 sprint car for the Pro 4 truck.
Be a fun one.
You'll be able to catch all of that racing action. Mr. Joshua Wilkie and Adam Thompson, different Adam Thompson from the one that you've probably recognized, will be on the call for that all throughout this season. And that's just some of the racing action that we've got coming up for you here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Gives you a good reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action. But as for this broadcast here tonight of the Formula V Weekend Warriors season opening race here at Cadwell Park, I think that will just about do it. And so for myself, Ron Maunz, Joshua Wilkie, working alongside me, working the comms and the cams on today's broadcast and doing a mighty fine job in doing so, I say thank you all so very much for watching this broadcast here on SMB, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future. Season 1 of 2025. Let's see what sort of adventures that it has in store. And pace cars way through the corner. That wasn't the crest doing him dirty.
numbers there right off the beginning is something you probably want to monopolize on right away, honestly, in a rain race.
Involved in that as well. Godin, I believe, is a newer racer. Oh, that's a big crash coming out of the corner. Right as I was mentioning all of those racers, that... We saw him have that off-track moment not terribly long ago, and he has come back from a... And oh my god, that's a big wreck coming out of turn number 4. Multiple cars around, a little bit of contact going to Chris Montgomery as well. I saw that car kind of jerk around a little bit through that corner, but you can see Montgomery maybe got to size up a move on Coliseum, as Coliseum may try and get a move on. That is 5-6 cars covered by just about nothing on this racetrack. Nearly 4 wide through the corner. Look at Coliseum going in way deep into turn 5. He's got to lose out on that spot on Chris Montgomery and make Coliseum. Too long contact being... Weekly Formula V Weekend Warriors crash him up Wreckfest at the checkered flag. May God have mercy on both Josh and I's graphics cards because the event does